This is getting to be too much for me, guys. I mean, I joked about this, but with everything going on with One Piece right now, and now this, like, I'm seriously, my heart is gonna tap out. I'm gonna end up in the ICU. Okay, it's gonna happen. Like, holy crap. Where do I even start with this? Like, I'm gonna throw up an image. I'm gonna throw up an image from this episode, and it's not going to be an image that you would immediately associate. You would probably associate this episode, My Hero Academia episode 49, with like this. With, you know, All Might freaking bloody, broken, only part of his body is musclified. You see the eyes gleaming through the dark pit of hopelessness, rising up, the dream, the desire to be the symbol of peace! But that's not going to be related to this. This is the image. This is the image. Izuku Midoriya, first-year high school student at UA, staring up, crying at the visage of what All Might becomes at the end of this episode, at All Might's message to the populace. And the next episode is actually going to be called End of the Beginning, Beginning of the End, something like that. And this really does mark an extremely important turning point in My Hero Academia. I don't think it's a spoiler to say the age of All Might has now come to a close at the end of this episode. He is now retiring from the hero business, and a new era is going to begin. However, it's not going to be as simple as just like, well, All Might was the bearer of One for All, and then he gave it to Izuku, and now he's retiring, and now Izuku's going to become... No. Because Izuku's still in training, so we'll see how that goes. But for this episode, for this massive hit you with a freight train after you just blew off your balls with a pile of firecrackers episode... starts off with a flashback. A flashback involving Toshinori in his younger days. It actually looks like he's about in middle school, so right around the same time that Toshinori met Izuku, around that age there. And Toshinori, of course, was a quirkless boy just like Izuku. You see why he decided to pick Izuku as a successor, even though he just met him like that day. He decided to pass on his quirk. You see the parallels where it's like, oh man, middle school student, quirkless, very brave and brash. Yeah, you see where this is going? But yeah, we also see his master, the one that passed One for All on to Toshinori, Nana Shimura. So in case you didn't know this, Toshinori is the 8th bearer of One for All, and that making Izuku the 9th. So All Might's master, Toshinori's master, was Nana Shimura, who was the 7th bearer, and Nana is just a popular Japanese name for girls, but it just means 7, so there you go. And of course, she was mentioned at the end of the last episode by All for One. I believe in the manga, we only got to see her from, like, segments at a time. Like, I remember there was one panel where we only got to see her from, like, the neck down, but in this episode, it just pans all the way up and we see her face. We see her face in the manga, too. I just think they expand upon the flashbacks a little bit than in the manga. I think in the manga, it's just, like, you know, All Might fighting One for All, and then there's, like, 1 or 2 panels of a flashback. Here, it's a lot more palpable, a lot more stuff we get to see from Toshinori's past. It doesn't really expand upon anything that we don't see in the manga. It's just more time and more, you know, we get to see Shimura Nana a lot more, which is nice. And so here's something I guess I'll just start with, and this is something that I've thought about for a while. So I'm trying to, of course, figure out, you know, exactly how many, not just how many bearers there are, because we've known there's 9, with Izuku being the current, but if you look at the stats, each member of One for All could not have lived very long lives, because I think it was stated that Izuku is in the 4th generation since quirks were a thing, right? Maybe 4th or 5th generation, something like that. If we go back through the generations just in our world, you know, right now we're in the millennials or Generation Z or Y or whatever you want to call it, and so that's where we're at right now. And then the one before this was Gen X, and then after that, baby boomers, but after that, silent generation, and then the greatest generation. That's about 5 generations. That's only about 100 years. That's what I'm trying to get across here. So if quirks started becoming a thing 100 years ago, and then that's when All for One, bestowed that quirk into his brother, and then One for All was born about 100 years ago. We've had 9 bearers since then. Yeah, they couldn't have lived extremely long lives if that was the case. And with Nana Shimura, it's definitely implied that she died rather young, in her 30s or something like that. Passed on One for All to Toshinori when he was around Deku's age, around middle school age, and then here we have All Might, who's probably not much older than in his like late 30s, early 40s, if that. But as we continue on from the last episode, we saw All Might just slam freaking All for One right in the face, shattered his mask, and we get to see what he's like underneath. And it's not really a face, it's just scar tissue. He has no eyes, no nose really, his mouth is covered by like a respirator, he could still speak, but his face is no hair, it's like all scar tissue. Like there's a little bit of area sunken in where his eyes used to be, and that's it, after their last fight. And you're sitting there, like, and if you're like me, you're wondering, how the hell is this guy that is, kept on life support, and was always off in the shadows, hooked up to some machines, how could this guy stand? I mean, granted, All Might is weakened. He's not at full power for a number of reasons. His initial weakness, he has a time limit. He passed on his quirk to Izuku, so it's gradually getting weaker, but still, a straight-up muscle punch straight to the fucking head, and this guy who's hooked up to life support, he's not going down. And the thing though that's scary about All for One that you really need to understand, not just the devious ways that he manipulates All Might in this episode, we'll get into that in a second, but just the sheer number of quirks he has. And we saw that when he was, like kinetic booster ×3, physical enhancement ×2, multiplier, air cannon, pressure negator, whatever, adding in a bunch of different words, which is a really cool way of introducing your ability. Just like, I'm stacking all my abilities, and you can't stop me, and here you go. So, but you also have to figure, not just those kind of quirks that are useful in battle, but the supplemental level of quirks that he has taken into himself, like probably rage on the absurd. Okay, like we had, Ragdoll's scan or search quirk that she had. That's not something that's used for battle. It's just something that can be supplementary. So obviously he has some type of quirk that can keep him alive, because the dude is probably over 100 years old at this point, or pretty close to it. So there's some quirk for that, some quirk to stop aging. I would also assume he has a bunch of quirks that can stop pain, that can, like adrenaline rush to keep you going even after you've been damaged, some sort of durability quirks. Like, imagine all the different quirks like Kirishima's hardening or Tetsu's real steel that can just lessen damage. If he just stacked on all these durability quirks one after another, each attack from All Might, he might be able to cut that in half or greater than that. He might be able to, like, every direct blunt attack I take is already, like, divided by 9 or something like that, because all of these durability quirks he's got stacked on top of each other, plus all the things that he might have, quirks that have a certain degree of self-healing. Not to the point where he could, like, repair his face, but, certain quirks that, like, start to repair the damage as soon as it's been done. So that's what happens. Also, remember that Nomu back at the USJ? That had shock absorption, so probably stuff like that he's got, which is why he's, even after getting a punch right to the face, he's still just to be able to backtalk All Might, like, yeah, so, Nana Shimura, huh? And so he goes on and starts to manipulate All Might. He starts, trash-talking Nana, saying, oh my god, she was so pathetic. I can't believe the quirk I gave to my own brother ended up in her hands. And oh, the way she died. Would you like to hear in grisly detail how that happened, All Might? So he starts to mess with him, to the point where he starts to mock and laugh. And then he announces the big revelation, the thing that was really going to get under Toshinori's skin. Because Gran Torino steps in and he's like, dude, All Might, Toshinori, this is exactly what happened 6 years ago when you fought him the last time. He started running his mouth, and he's got that silver tongue, and, you distracted, and then he got you right in the stomach, and then that's how you got taken down. So you can't let him distract you. You can't let him, rile you up. That's what he wants, obviously. This isn't the kind of guy you can beat just through like brute strength and just tank through it, you know? But even with that being the case, All For One still has a trump card where he brings up Tomura and he says, did you know? He was so conniving when he said it too. He's like, did you know Shigaraki Tomura is in fact Nana Shimura's grandson? And this is where I really gotta commend Christopher Sabat, who is the English VA for All Might or for Toshinori, because the way he handled this scene, I've heard Chris in a lot of other stuff. He plays Zoro in the Funimation dub of One Piece. I've heard him in a lot of other stuff. And so when he's thinking, internally thinking about, like, you know, the relationship between Tomura and Nana, everything that Nana stood for, and now what Tomura stands for, and you know, it's not Tomura that approached All For One. All For One sought out Tomura specifically because he was Nana's grandchild. He specifically sought him out just so he could have this moment. Just so he could have the moment where he stands before All Might, Pillar of Peace, and say, I literally took in Nana Shimura's grandson and then warped him and raised him to be the person that stands opposite you. I took the one thing in your life that was so precious to you, your master and her ideals, and I took one of her own blood and I twisted and changed those ideals just to fuck with you. He was waiting forever to say that. And the emotion that is conveyed through Chris's voice acting for Toshinori, it was really something very powerful. It was like, oh my god, I can't believe it, really? Like, it really did sound like he was crying in the booth, which, perfect for the situation with going on here. Now, if there was no one else around, if this was just straight up brawl between All Might and All For One, this might have went a very different way, but thankfully there were actually people that he was protecting. In fact, earlier in the episode, All For One launches another big shockwave, and Toshinori has to stand in front of it to block it, and his emaciated form is known to the world. Because this is like 9/11 levels of terrorist attack. Like this is what I also love about My Hero Academia. It's like the realism of this. Like, we're all used to reading shonen manga. If you're used to reading like battle shonen, stuff blows up a lot. In One Piece and Bleach and Naruto, stuff blows up a lot. But this takes place in our world, or at least, you know, our world with superpowers. But, you know, a factory in the middle of a city just literally explodes. Like, look at this. Look how much damage this was. Just, it is like 9/11, basically. Look how much damage. Like, imagine if this was in New York or DC or London or any major city. Not just the warehouse. You know how many hundreds of people are dead from this attack? The entire city is in panic right now. There's, you know, news copters going around. People are crying. Izuku and Bakugo, they're still in the crowd of people. They're safe, but they're watching it on the Jumbotron. They're all crying like, please, All Might, you have to win this. Oh my god, look at how much damage this guy did. So, yeah, and they say at the end of the episode, the number of casualties is absurd. Hundreds, if not thousands of people are dead. Not even doubting the fact that not even just the explosion from the factory, not just the initial explosion. Every time freaking All For One launches one of those shockwave air cannon shit, you know, many people are losing their lives every time he blows one of those loads all over the city, right? So yeah, he blocks the attack of one of those. There's a girl in the rubble that's trying to cheer him on, kind of right at the moment when Toshinori's thinking like, oh my god, I can't believe they're related. What would she say after how we've turned out? And right as he thinks to himself, what would my master, what would Nana Shimura say? There's that injured girl in the back that he protected, and she's like, oh, All Might, you have to win. And then it's kind of like it rings through like that's what Nana would say. It's like, you have to win, you have to stand back up, you have to do it. I don't care what the villain is, you have to go. And so he buffs back up, but it's just his arm because he's severely injured. He can only manage his arm. And then that's when All For One just pulls out all the stops, and he's like, well, some other heroes show up on the scene to kind of render support, like Endeavor and Edgeshot and Kamui Woods. They're all there. They kind of rescue Genist and everybody that was around, and Mount Lady, and they're there, and even Edgeshot kind of parries with All for One very briefly, but he just kind of disperses all of them and then just cuts all the BS and then charges into his strongest quirk combination. You got bone spears, you got rivets, you got like strength times 3, multipliers, gigantification, resulting in this giant Hulk-sized fist, bone spears, freaking metal rivets popping out of it, gems and all this rock, like, you know, hard as diamond. Like, just look at this bullshit. And he's like, you know, this is my strongest quirk combination. I literally came up with this just to kill you. And it just comes down to a battle of fisticuffs. Just one final attack. And so they go, and All Might punches with his one fist because it's the only one he has, you know, muscle-fied. But he's like, at the last minute, while he's, you know, blocking it with that, he channels that power from one arm to the other and then manages to knock him right in the face. And that knocks him back, but he's like, that's not good enough. And before All for One can even finish his sentence, All Might's like, yeah, that's because I didn't put my back into it. You have one more beautiful, just heart-wrenching scene where you see Nana Shimura passing One for All on to Toshinori, and you have this moment where, like, both of their hands, All Might's hands, all broken, and, like, just like Izuku's after he fought Muscular, it's all broken, and then passes on One for All, and it gets Muscular again, and he's like, goodbye, One for All. And then he just, gotta do it, I gotta do it, hold on, I don't want to blow out your ears when I do this. United States of Smash! Oh, yeah, baby! Oh. You know, my job mostly involves me just screaming like an idiot in my bedroom, and oh, that's great. I knocked out one of the boards in my bed when I did that. Maybe I should try to become a superhero. Okay. So, and I compared, because I wanted to see which one was better. I compared the English dubbed version, Christopher Sabat doing the United States of Smash, compared to the Japanese one, and it was a tough call. But I gotta say the Japanese was better. The voice actor for the Japanese voice actor for All Might escapes me at the moment, but it was much more powerful when he said, like, United States of Smile! It was beautiful. Oh, okay. So that's where you would think the episode would end. You know, that would be a perfect place. It would be very jarring considering what the ending credits song is. It'd be like, United States of a Smash! Boom! Okay, but it's horrible beyond reason. Go and listen to the original ending, please. No, All Might's not done yet. Okay, even after USA smashing All for One right into the ground, the blast radius, the impact point, causes a tornado. Okay, that's how strong this was. Literally gathering up the last embers that remained in him of One for All, and just boom. Think of One for All like this. It's like a torch, and then, you know, he takes the fire and he can reignite it as many times as you want, but then he passed it on to Izuku. So all that All Might has left is just a torch with the fire, and he can't reignite it. Once that goes out, he's done. So he's just kind of protecting the flame. That's the analogy they use. So he draws up the last bit of it, and the fire goes from like a little ember, and right when he smashes him, it lights up into a giant inferno, and then bam. But they're not done yet, because he has to let the world know that it's okay, because he is the symbol of peace. That was what drove him. So even after it's pretty much all gone now, his tank is empty, he still has enough power to stand up and go into his muscular form, and he can't move. Like, seriously, like, he takes one step and he's just gonna go back into his emaciated state and then probably pass out. So he stands there and he just... Ugh! And then the chopper sees this, and they broadcast it all over the country, all over the world. Astronauts up on the ISS are probably, go All Might! You know, and they're like, yeah, you did it! But, of course, the people don't really know that this is, at the moment, this is it, this is the end. So we see a wrap-up moment where the news anchors are reporting on everything, all the casualties that happened, all the injured people, just absurd, horrible level terrorist attack here. And, there's a scene where All Might is just pointing to the camera where he just kind of does this, and he says only like 4 words. He's like, "You're next." Okay, I guess that would be 2 words, but like you're next out there, and all the people in the world, they see this and they mean, oh, this must mean as a threat to any uprising villains in the world. You're next. But Izuku sees this, and of course it's the exact opposite, because he sees it as the indicator that it is in fact All Might's retirement. So he cries. Anta, no. And then the ending theme kicks up, and it's like, oh, okay, that's not a great place to put that, but okay. What am I gonna do? What do you want from me? What do you want from me? To just sit here at the end of this and just be like, this episode was pretty good. This episode was amazing. This episode was like the best episode ever of My Hero Academia. And that makes sense because this in the manga was the best chapter of My Hero Academia. I mean, yeah, you might have personal preferences. You might think, oh, the chapter where the next villain got defeated, that was a big deal, or the chapter where this occurred, or maybe you just like the fun chapters. Okay, fine. If I was gonna do a popularity poll on the #1 moment that exists in all of My Hero Academia right now, you can't lie that this would be #1. Alright, it would definitely be #1. Maybe I should do that just to prove a point. Okay, but no, okay. Yeah, the adrenaline was pumping. It made me cry. It made me pumped. It was this really just beautiful episode. Honestly, they could have ended out the season with this. We have an entire other arc left that's going to be included in Season 3, so get ready for that. But they really could have ended the season here, and it would have been a perfect way to do it. Oh, shit. But yeah, the Age of All Might has now ended, and now moving on to the next generation. So we'll see how Izuku handles that. We'll see how the other pro heroes handle that, especially the *2 hero. How he handles this. So yeah, it was the best episode ever. I have really nothing else to say about this. I know that whenever something really hype happens in anime, a lot of people will get on YouTube and claim that, oh man, this was the best episode ever. This was the best episode ever. But no, I don't do that very often. In fact, I don't really do that at all. But I gotta call it as I see it. This is the best episode of My Hero Academia ever. I really don't have any other ways to fault it. There's, like, from start to finish, it's a freaking masterpiece. Like, seriously, like, record this episode and just play it in a constant loop in, like, the freaking Louvre or something. Like, it is art. It is straight up art. Okay? So, yeah, I'm gonna start a petition to do that. Thanks for watching, everybody. Signing out.